In a thinly veiled and very transparent attempt to curry the favor of the YouTube search algorithm, we're going to be redesigning something a little bit topical today. And yes, I'm about 2 weeks late on this issue, but I thought it would be fun to redesign the marketing website, or the primary landing page rather, for the Silicon Valley Bank. Now, bank websites are notorious for having terrible UX because at the end of the day, their main value proposition isn't an easy to use UI, it's lots of other KPIs associated with the financial sector. And because of that, most banks have pretty bad websites. And that's also the case for Silicon Valley Bank. So we're going to take a stab at improving the UI slightly to make it more effective at doing what I think it's supposed to be doing, which is really getting more people to sign up for their service. Well, perhaps not anymore, but retroactively, maybe this could have landed them a couple more depositors. But as always, we've got our style guide here with a whole bunch of blacks, whites, and grays. We're using that really nice blue with 3 different hues as the primary accent, and then they've got a whole bunch of secondary accents on the site. This yellow, green, purple. There's also a red and orange down here. So we're going to try and see if we can sprinkle them in lots of different places. And of course, we're using for the body font, I believe it's Aileron, and then mixing it with an accent font called Industry, which is a very tacky font. And I want to see if I can get the tech industry that kind of is associated with Silicon Valley quite frequently into the design somehow. So we've also got a list of stories here, like things that you'd want to do on this site. And it's important to understand the difference between the goals of a given design, right? Marketing websites have a very specific purpose that's very different from the kinds of goals you'd see in product UIs, which is usually usability and kind of just making things easy for the user. Of course, all those things exist in the marketing space, but there's additional business requirements where you kind of are trying to get users to sign up for your service, right? And how do you do that? Well, it's complicated, but in a nutshell, you really just have to answer all of their pre-sale questions. What are the things in their head that are kind of uncertain? And should they be answered correctly, they would move forward with the sale. That's the logical side of things. Obviously, you need to hit home the emotional side with a really clean modern design as well. It's a very complicated, gooey design task. But nonetheless, here's all the things that I would imagine would be kind of in a user's head, in a potential customer's head, before they were to sign up for any bank. Obviously, learn what's unique about this bank. Learn whether it's the right bank for their business, see what's been going on in the news lately. Let's push this down a little bit. It's not really that important. I want to see who else has their money in there so I can feel reassured that it's safe. Obviously, as we found out recently, that's kind of a farce, but trust is a very weird thing, right? You can obviously trust something based on completely illogical reasons, and that would make you move forward in a transaction where you're potentially investing millions of dollars in something just because you know your friends are there too, right? Showing some case studies and other testimonials will probably be pretty significant in building some trust there. I want to search the site to learn about their financial products, subscribe for updates, see what's been going on in the news, talk to an account specialist when I'm ready, and for those that were unfortunately affected by the dissolution of the bank a couple of weeks ago, I want to understand what's going on with the FDIC bailout. So a lot going on here, a lot to pack into a single site, but that's where design comes in, right? How do we take all of these competing interests and goals and present them to the user in a way that doesn't totally torpedo usability and enables us to achieve some of the business goals that we have set up. So gonna take a stab at it. I'm gonna come back in a couple of hours with hopefully a much sexier bank website. Nothing too crazy with the navigation here, just fixing some alignment and spacing issues and adding in that new nice industry font to give it more of a tacky feel. Also wanted to note that when you have multiple properties with a company, adding this secondary navigation above the primary navigation is a really good way to easily split between the different companies. And they were already doing that. We're just adding a little bit more consistency to the UI here. But yeah, that's a good shout on that treatment. Now here you're getting to see a little bit of my secret sauce for building out really good marketing websites that actually convert customers. What you want to do is get a big list of all of the pre-sale customer questions that exist in the minds of your customers. This usually requires some degree of customer discovery or lots of conversations with business owners. And then you want to rank them by your perceived importance of each question for that given customer segment. And then you just make several blocks throughout the page that answer those questions in order of importance. So obviously the biggest question here is like, what do you guys do for me? And how are you unique as a bank? So we're tackling that first in this big hero section. Generally speaking, if you're going for conversions, pictures of people that look like your ideal customer who seem to be happy in some way, ideally using what looks like to be your product, are really great candidates for above-the-fold hero images. And this particular treatment where you have the subject popping out of an abstract shape in the background seems to be very popular right now. I'm recording this in about March 2023. So I generally just kind of stick to this heuristic, this particular design pattern in most of my marketing page design rather, and it seems to work quite well, and it gives it a very like poppy modern feel. If you ever feel stuck and you feel like your design's just a little bit too boring and a little too white, try experimenting with using an extremely light hue of your accent color as the background color, and then making the text color a very dark hue of that same color. It's a very nice feel and kind of gives the impression that you're going for with that primary color, but also adds some visual interest to the page. I really liked the treatment they applied to the FDIC notification banner that they have on the existing site. Here I'm just moving it to the very top of the page because that's kind of where this kind of banner makes more sense. If you put it in the middle of all the navigation elements, you lose the effect of the primary-secondary relationship between the two navigations. And since this is kind of a global thing for SVB, putting it right at the top of the page makes the most sense. So now that we've established in the user's mind what this web page really represents, right? What am I looking at? It's a bank built for startup founders. Great. Okay, you're a bank though, and yeah, maybe you're tailored to my specific needs, but like what makes you different from every other bank? That's what we're now answering in this second block. We're going to talk about the qualitative benefits and maybe even the quantitative benefits of signing up for the Silicon Valley Bank to kind of get people emotionally hooked in the idea of potentially being a depositor. And we're going to include a pretty cheeky benefit here in that it's the only bank in the world currently where 100% of your funds deposited there are insured by the US FDIC. So it's definitely a benefit, that's for sure. I was feeling a bit burned out after doing the hero here. There's a lot of visual flair up there, and didn't want to dive straight into the social proof section, which would be a little more of the same. So here I'm just putting together a series of article components which we're just going to list in a news section, and I find this to be quite easy because it's really just information hierarchy. It's just styling text so your visual attention flows to the header and then the description and then the link. Really easy to do, and then we're just going to repeat them across the screen as is on the standard on pretty much any website these days. Unless you're doing a very specific PPC campaign with a landing page that's catered very specifically for a single offering, it's usually a good idea to include some kind of secondary call to action on the page where potential customers that might not be interested in moving to the next step in the sales funnel today can still do something so you can keep in touch with them, and then you can reach back out to them in say 2-3 years when they're ready to invest. And most of the time, a good way to do that is just giving away free value with the condition that people are going to sign up for your newsletter. So that's what we're doing here, and we're just adding a lot of visual style here to kind of make the newsletter seem like a more human thing, and hopefully pull their attention with the very dark saturated blue we're using here. I think testimonial blocks are my personal kryptonite. I don't know why, but I always seem to really struggle with matching the testimonial block to the overall site aesthetic. So this section took me a ridiculous amount of time. But I've found in my experience designing things that sometimes if you just force yourself to sit down and solve a problem and look at other examples and do it again and again and again until you have a really good treatment that works, you can, generally speaking, arrive at a solution that really knocks it out of the park. And I think I did that here. So this took me a long time. I'm not going to cut through much of it. But you'll see at the end, I was actually very satisfied with the testimonial, and I think it really framed the individual giving the testimonial much more boldly than the existing site, which I think was kind of appropriate given that most of the clients at Silicon Valley Bank are high-profile investors. And I really wanted to experiment with the idea of letting the user self-select into their customer segment in the header, but ultimately I decided it was introducing way too much visual complexity to the hero, so I just canned it altogether. Okay, there we go. I think we have a solid homepage landing page here for Silicon Valley Bank that does all the things that you'd expect a homepage to do, and I think just aligns with general best practices for design. We've just got a really solid layout here. Here you're hit with what I would imagine to be kind of the main value prop for the bank. Like, they're built for startup founders. Like, that's the whole purpose of Silicon Valley. It's to help the Silicon Valley tech ecosystem to grow, and they need financial resources to do that. A simple call to action: talk to an account specialist or just learn more about the bank. And those are the two main actions I would imagine someone would want to do here. And then scrolling farther down the page, you're hit immediately with like the benefit statements. They're a little text heavy. I would probably try to find a way to make these a little more visual if I was actually like doing this for money. And take a little bit of the text out here. Maybe we can even ditch the description text altogether. But either way, we just want to hit those benefit statements early. Like, people need to understand, like, why should I care? What's in this for me? Way early in the experience. And then hitting them with some testimonials. We could also slap some logos down here as well to kind of really hit home the point that they're like the real deal. And then, you know, some basic stuff like, hey, here's all our news articles, we're actually like a real company. And then of course the secondary call to action for anyone that's not necessarily interested in joining today. Perhaps we can hit them with a drip campaign and close them in a couple of months. So that's what I'd recommend as a treatment for the Silicon Valley Bank site. Obviously this would never be implemented. I'll be surprised if the site's still up there in the next couple months. But this is more of like an experimental redesign for me. I don't do very much marketing-focused design, so this was a good little refresher / practice for me. But let me know what you think. Would you have done this differently? Is there anything that's just like egregiously missing from this UI? Something you'd like to have here? Something that would make sense on a banking page like this? But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a laugh, and I'll see you next week, folks.